Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming, despite the cold, to this extraordinary event sponsored by Columbia's Center on Capitalism and Society. And thank you, Professor Tria, for managing to make it here by train from Washington. We are greatly honored. It's a real pleasure to introduce Giovanni Tria, Italy's Minister of Economy and Finance since June. Briefly, he received his degree in law from University of Rome, La Sapienza, in 1971, then took a series of academic posts, ending up a professor in the Faculty of Economics, University of Rome, Tor Vergata, and dean of the faculty in 2017. He has held many positions in the course of his more than 40 years as an expert on economic development, business cycles and growth, public investment assessment and project evaluation, and the role of government and the role of the governance of institutions in the growth process. He has also contributed over many years to the newspaper Il Foglio, and recently he edited with Giovanni Vallotti the 2012 volume Reforming the Public Sector. On a personal note, Giovanni and I first met right here at Columbia. He and Ernesto Felli audited a course I gave in academic year 74-75. When I became the visiting scholar at Banca d'Italia that summer, Professor Tria made contact with me and took steps that led to a big change in my life. I became co-organizer of the annual Villa Mondragone International Seminar with Luigi Paganetto, and my wife Viviana and I spent every summer in Rome until 1990. We made lifelong friends with dozens of Italians, including some who are here today, Giovanni and Maristella and Lucio Scandizzo. So I am among the many, I am sure, who have a huge debt of gratitude to Giovanni. I give the floor to Minister Tria.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I really want to thank, first of all, Ned Phelps for this invitation. Really, for me, it's a privilege to be here, and the invitation comes from Ned Phelps. I'm really delighted to be speaking in this prestigious university, where I spent sometimes a period that I think was one of the best periods of my life. Today, well, I'm going to discuss the policy program of the Italian government. I would also like to look at a broader context of the European economic policies. I will close with a reflection on the role of Italy in searching, promoting a new policy course both at the national and supranational level. Italy has been badly hit by the latest Great Recession, with a large drop in GDP and income per capita that is today still below pre-crisis level, almost minus 5%. This has affected both the middle class and the poor, with the per capita disposable incomes plunging almost 16%. Absolute poverty threatening 8.4% of residential individuals, and the relative poverty affecting a share almost twice as large. Unemployment has also increased from the 6% level before the crisis to an average level of about 10%, with dramatic increases for the youth and the population of South Italy. Public finance conditions have somewhat deteriorated in spite of the efforts for consolidation and a continuous primary surplus for the past 10-20 years. Against this backdrop of negative effects of the double-dip recession and lingering structural weakness, the Italian economy still exhibits a number of current and potential strengths. High competitive performance of Italian exports have strengthened the external position of the country, allowing the development of a sizable current account surplus hovering around 2.5% of GDP, in spite of persistent overvaluation of exchange rate and the negative effects of the crisis. The financial conditions of the households are also stronger than most other European countries, with private wealth estimated at more than twice national debt, which is held domestically for about 60% of its nominal value. As a positive side effect of the crisis, productivity has been increasing in the manufacturing sector because of the enhanced competitiveness conditions, which has pushed many inefficient firms off the market and reduced rents and monopolistic distortions. The government program is founded on a set of measures that try to strike a politically acceptable balance between the short and long-run goals and the different priorities of the two political parties involved. These measures aim to combine emphasis on social policies with growth and stability by addressing three major problems. First, some pressing social issues on unemployment, inclusiveness, and fairness. Second, taking steps to improve growth prospects. Third, maintaining financial stability by ensuring that social and pro-growth policy are consistent with placing the country's high public debt to GDP ratio on a declining path. The budget law adopted on December 30 ensures compliance of Italy's 2019 budget with the European fiscal rules and entails a modest expansionary fiscal stance in the period 2019-2021. The budget law sets the objective to achieve a deficit on 2% for 2019, 1.8% for 2020, and 1.5% for 2021. The budget law seeks to achieve a balance between a modest expansionary policy, as I said, which has proven timely under the manifest threat of a cycle downturn, and social and investment programs, while ensuring that the debt to GDP will decline between 2018 and 2021. The bulk of the measures focuses on active labor policies, poverty reduction, and social fairness, and on a series of policies to boost private and public investment and improve institutional performance and the overall business climate. The results expected from these measures, however, have to be interpreted in the framework of the high uncertainty characterizing the world economy at this stage and in the context of what Ned Phelps has recently characterized as a combination of Knightian uncertainty and imperfect information. Nevertheless, the financial markets have shown a positive reaction to the adoption of the budget law, with the spread on 10-year German government securities lowering from the last November high of over 320 basis points and now hovering around 240 basis points. I'd like to underline that Italian debt is fully sustainable for several reasons. First, Italy's private wealth is one of the highest in the world, with asset values estimated at 9 times per capita incomes, in line with the richest European countries. But private liabilities at only 62% of disposable income, much below the 100 level of the European average. Thus, the overall net worth position of the country is solid and signals a resilient and liquid economic system. Second, as shown also by recent theoretical and empirical analysis, in an environment of interest rates that fall below average growth, debt is only an apparent burden. Overzealous consolidation attempts have proven to be self-defeating, and both rollover and deficit spending for investment purpose may not only be possible, but could be even advisable. Third, in order to reestablish a climate of confidence and stability in the financial markets, Italy is determined to reduce the debt level continuously and progressively, as shown by its adherence to a continued primary surplus in the past 20 years. Fourth, the Italian debt presents a time profile, duration structure, and average cost particularly favorable, concentrated for 72% in long-term bonds and an average substitution rate of 6.7 years. Furthermore, the debt is owned for 70% by Italian residents. Finally, in spite of the impending end of the quantitative easing, the average cost of servicing the debt has been decreasing. In 2018, Italy issued 390 billion euros of government securities at an average issuance cost of 1.07%. And the credit default swaps and spreads have remained well below the levels prior to Mario Draghi whatever it takes policy move. The key problems of Italian economy are low growth and weak social outcomes in a business climate dominated by loss of confidence and increasing social and political distress. The latest data available also indicate weaker than expected growth as a consequence also of the slowdown of the euro area. The challenge for the present government is to demonstrate both its willingness and also the ability to perform 3 crucial tasks. First, relaunch public investment. Second, design new and effective social inclusion and labor market policies. And third, reinvigorate market confidence and the business climate. Relaunching public investment is a key element of the government agenda, but also the greater long-run challenge for the entire economy. As a ratio to GDP, public investment has fallen by more than 1 percentage point of GDP since 2009, and spending for maintaining existing public infrastructures has also declined. Many signs indicate that public capital is deteriorating alongside an even more worrisome fall of both the level and the quality of human capital. Furthermore, because of the vertical fall in the quantity and quality of public investments, private investment intention increasingly face the prospect of settlements in backward areas with scarce human capital and insufficient physical and civil infrastructures. What is lacking is not simply traditional public works, but an adequate response to the growing importance of technological progress and the systemic nature of modern infrastructures. We need also more investment in social infrastructure, such as schools, universities, research centers, for producing human capital and fueling confidence and dynamism in a scenario dominated by uncertainties and worries about the unexplored future. The crucial component of the fall in public investment, on the other hand, is the deterioration of the ability of public administrations to manage investment projects in their increasing complexity of the system, from the technical economic planning of works to selection, evaluation, and monitoring processes. Beyond the financial resources, and in spite of potential and high returns, public capital tends to decrease because the ability to move from intentions to facts finds a prohibitive limit in the human and social resources necessary for the realization of quality investment. The institutional weakness and the declining of the planning abilities of the public administration are therefore a vicious circle that involves a continuous sabotage of the realization of plans and projects. In addition to this, the constant reference to the emergency on public budgets generates a form of economic myopia that considers investment irrelevant to boost growth in the short term because their long implementation time. This also fuels the idea that since Italy needs to grow in Italy, the mobilization of resources, thank you. This also fuels the idea that since Italy needs to grow in Italy, the mobilization of resources awaiting distant benefits in the future must have a lower priority than current spending measures that they provide immediate results. Although volatile and apparently attentive to the short term, financial markets are the place where assessments of future benefits are discounted and transformed into present expectations and values. Contrary to what some short-term balance sheet supervisors argue, increasing spreads are above all a reflection of negative investor sentiment with respect to our country's growth prospects and its ability to nurture them by making long-term allocative choices. These expectations reflect on an increasing lack of human capital and result into a loss of dynamism that reverberates through lower investment in innovation and creativity of both public and private sectors. To counter these expectations, economic policy has the responsibility to reverse the process of the deterioration of public capital that has serious consequences on productivity and on the long-term credibility of the Italian system. This can only be achieved with a wide-ranging action to boost public investment that persuades the markets of the future sustainability of the country system. While suffering from some specific and acute lack of dynamism, Italy shares the main characteristics of a more general crisis affecting investment and innovation in Europe. Conflicts of interest involving the credit and the choice of investment project is a crucial element in the relationship between banks and enterprises in the bank-centered system prevailing today in European Union, and under the current circumstances take on a particular relevance. The intensity of the conflicts of interest and the relative magnitude of the related costs, however, are not the same for all sectors and or types of business. The most innovative firms with the highest growth rates are more penalized because the motives to fear both failure and accelerated Schumpeterian creative destruction can be stronger for the banks and the other debt holders. Firms in mature industries, with the production more stable and with fewer opportunities to innovate, tend those to be preferred by creditors. They tend to obtain credit on better terms and to have higher debt. Not only this strategy is a recipe for a long-run disastrous loss in the technological races, it also makes the European countries more vulnerable to the downturns of the economic cycle. In a recession, in fact, companies operating in mature industries are more subject to the effects of demand contraction. Car manufacturing companies, for example, are the first to suffer in times of slowdown or reversal of growth, and the vulnerability is high with respect to reductions or delays in strategic purchases by consumers. But let me look now at where Europe is going and at the role that Italy should play, in my opinion. The European dream, interpreted as the vision of a federal Europe united and integrated in all its diverse and conflicting components, goes back to Charles the Great and has never abandoned the collective unconscious since then. The Treaty of Rome and the alternate source of European integration in the past 60 years seem to many a slow but progressive realization of a workable model of the European vision. More recently, however, Brexit, other setbacks, and a general disillusionment on the great and progressive fate of an integrated Europe have seemed to prevail. In order to define the Italian role in the European Union, we must consider three main elements of the surge and the possible demise of the European dream. The first is the perceived importance. I'm sorry. The first is the perceived importance of globalization for growth and the fear of the new vulnerabilities induced by global interdependence. The second is the need for something broader than national efforts to achieve the goals of economic development, but also the reshaping of regional and national priorities within a more flexible and dynamic European model Third, the growing importance of multilateralism to achieve national and mutually compatible targets, but also the disappointment for the ineffectiveness of multilateral and supranational institutions and the surge of a new bilateralism. Within Europe, the euro area countries are also the primary targets of new policy opportunities where Italy can play an important role as promoter and mediator across interests that may converge only in the long term and only if the policies are the right ones. As a yet rather imperfect currency union, lack of flexibility and coordination across economic policies is the main cause of the economic divergence of member countries. And the primary reason why Europe at the same time is negatively affected and at the same time fuels global imbalances. The model of export-led growth, which has seen several revivals and is affected by some of the same fallacy of composition of the old mercantilistic illusions, is still being pursued by several countries, both within and outside Europe. As a growth model, while external surpluses can lead the growth of a country economy for a limited period of time, the export-led model is clearly not tenable in the long run, unless it is balanced by a sufficient increase, both cyclical and structural, of domestic demand. This message is being spread by multilateral institutions, including WTO, as is being gradually absorbed even by economies like China that have founded their development fortunes on an explosive foreign exchange account. In the current economic landscape, a development model based on managing short-term surpluses in merchandise trading also risks to lose the more important competitive challenge of the production and exchange of intangibles, especially in disembodied technologies and more generally in the capability to produce and trade innovation. In Europe, a major policy challenge is to rebalance the response to external demand with measures to fuel both domestic supply and demand by encouraging dynamism and promoting endogenous technological progress. The model pursued by the German export-led growth, therefore, appears to be at the root of the lack of convergence and the loss of dynamism across the European regions. In the case of Italy, it exacerbates the distance between the northern and the southern part of the country, and tends to fuel public debt in support of the dependent regions. It may also condemn the country to follow a declining model of growth based on mature products with little market prospects in terms of competitiveness and innovation. A new course of economic policy across Europe and the European institutions is thus necessary to escape the failing export-led mechanism based on mature products and the neglect of innovation and intangibles. This mechanism should be recognized as a form of a high-income trap, which fuels global imbalances within and outside the European Union and stifles innovation and dynamism. Addressing this challenge requires institutional imagination, coordination across member countries, but also new policy powers for the European institutions. Here again, by virtue of its intermediate position in power, dual growth model, export-led in the north and the lagging behind in the south, and the political stance, Italy should play a key role of innovator and at the same time of mediator to find a new, more sustainable and equitable solutions. As in the broader case of globalization, the European Union has embarked in an internally contradictory course, which proposes a way to organize society where economic rules are increasingly beyond the control of national governments, while political and social policies remain national. The main consequence of this approach is that the effects of the single market and the hard and soft budget rules on income distribution and social security are not balanced by adequate integration of welfare and fiscal policies. In spite of the large gains from trade and scale economies, in fact, the redistributive effects of the single market are huge, even though, in principle, winners may compensate the losers. The sheer size of the gains and the losses, in addition to the practical difficulties and costs entailed by redistributive measures, have caused a divergence across member states and regions. A major new round of European Union deepening is thus necessary, aimed at relaunching convergence and mutualism across member countries by pursuing sustainability, inclusion and shared prosperity. These public goods appear to be challenged and in many cases threatened by globalized trends. Their provision can only be addressed at the European level by a joint fiscal and welfare policy with sufficient resources and authority. An integrated welfare system and social protection network should be the object of a major effort at the European level. This effort should address the race to the bottom in labor standards and other forms of international arbitrage, aimed to gain competitive advantages by avoiding social responsibilities through global networks. Promoting investment in human capital of a scale and scope adequate to correspond to these needs is thus a crucial European policy. This should be done by offering opportunities for education and upgrading of labor skills as the most appropriate answer, in the framework of enlarged and enhanced European budget, and the only one capable to provide an alternative to the evoking of fragmented national interests. Overcoming the insidious divergence across member countries and income groups requires that Europe launches an investment program of a sufficient scale to be transformative rather than marginal, as most attempts have been so far, including the partially successful Juncker plan. This program would require adequate financing, which cannot be done without the introduction of effective mutualistic principles of risk, as well as benefit sharing across member countries, and also the backing of its European Central Bank. Last but not least, the European needs to respond to the demand for a reversal of the uncertainty, lack of information and security in a society dominated by systemic risk and destabilizing trends, where most centeredness of the past, from job security to social nets, have been waning or disappearing altogether, and risk can only be confronted with actions coordinated and deployed on the same global scale. A clear example of areas where an integrated response is needed is the treatment of the immigration emergency, but other areas, such as defense and terrorism, that also concern security, are also crucial to be able to deal with global threat. In sum, the Italian role to search and promote a new political course as an active European member is based on the important idea that citizens and market trust needs to be reestablished in Italy, in Europe, and globally, not only by tackling the causes of its decline, but also by providing new reasons for confidence in the world and in its future. This again calls for institutional building at transnational scale and underlines the interdependence of structures and agency for the success of modern society. In the words of Edmund Phelps, I quote, "I personally hold that the classic spirit of challenge and self-discovery is a fundamental human trait. By showing how the risk-taking activity of individuals contributes to social benefits, economics helps societies to accommodate what Augustine called our restlessness of heart. This is the better part of our human nature. Societies that suppress this restlessness stagnate and die. The issue of morality in economics is neither the fairness of income distribution nor the stability of financial systems. It is how human institutions can be shaped to correspond to human nature, to man's nature as an innovator." Thank you for attention.
I guess there's a tradition that the chair asks the first question. A question that popped into my head, and maybe I should have been able to infer the answer, is do you have a vision for the sort of industrial economy that you want for Italy? I mean, in particular, are you looking forward to Italy becoming a more powerful trading nation or a more innovative nation? It seems to me that in the West anyway, most economies are the one thing or the other. And I just wondered whether you had a thought on that.
But I hope that Italy could shift from an industrial country to an innovator country. But for that, we need more investment in general, in technology, in innovation, infrastructure, material and immaterial. Then I think that because of the risk of investment in a globalized world is increasing because investors have more opportunities, but the risk of the innovation is higher than before because how fast is the technological change and because it's very fast the diffusion in the world of technological change. This means that it's risky. Then I think that we need more public investment in human capital, in technology, infrastructure, and in this way it's possible to create a more friendly environment for business, for innovating business. This is a problem because we are in a world with it's a polarized world, also in innovations. And we have to, if we want a country innovator, we have to think that we have to strengthen the social protection net for the losers. Otherwise, it's quite difficult to face the risks.
We have some time for questions. Who would like to ask the first question? Jan Svenar? I think we can hear. Okay, here we go.
No, I got a microphone. So thank you very much. I thought this was a very succinct and very clear presentation. The ideas to me make
You should speak up a little bit.
Complete sense. So my question is more about how realistic you think your vision for Italy and Europe really is, in the sense, starting with Europe, you have the mutualization idea, which you stress, and many others have pointed out as being important, but it is being resisted by some of the Northern European countries, Germany in particular. So do you think that actually you will be able to prevail together with others in this idea being implemented? Similarly, in the medium to long run, as you're stressing the need to innovate and so on, Europe has not been particularly successful since the 1990s in going in the digital technology. Literally missed the boat, so to speak, right? And has been trying to get back on, so far not particularly successfully. Are you realistically optimistic there? And then in the short run, to what extent are you worried that the slowdown that we see in Europe may be serious, and serious in particular in Italy, given the fragility of the banking sector in the sense of the non-performing loans, which could come back again as they were before?
I think that there are at least 3 or 4 questions. I try to remember the question. The first one is how to join in this vision the northern countries. I'm not so. It's difficult to be optimistic, actually, because there is kind of disgregating sentiment in Europe. And this disgregating sentiment doesn't come from Italy or from the south, but from the north. They don't want to go more deeply in integration. I think Germany is in the middle. But this is quite is the situation. This means that in Europe we continue to discuss about how we have to be together, about rules. But we never focus on why we want to be together. Maybe in this way I can answer to the second question, the competitiveness in Europe. Maybe why we want to be together is also because we want to be more competitive with a huge amount of at the European level program investments in technology and human capital. And you are right. Now the competition in the world is between the United States and China for the hegemony on in the future on technology. Europe is not at all on the stage. Doesn't exist from this point of view. This is the main problem. Of course, we think that we have we can solve the problem, maybe with a euro budget for convergence, for competitiveness, not only for stabilization purposes, but because we have to discuss why we are together. And also, in Europe, we don't use in our also meeting to look at what is happening in the world outside Europe. We are always looking at what happened inside Europe, and we discuss how to share the costs of the condominium. Then, in this situation, we have to consider what's happening now. In the short term, Italy is in a technical recession for 2 months, 2 quarters. But the problem is that Italy used to have a rate of growth lower than European average, about 1% constantly. This is our problem. Now we have a slowdown in Europe, mainly in Germany. Maybe it's caused by its export-led model, because the automotive sector went down, and the Italian manufacturing is very linked, has many ties with manufacturing in Germany. Then we received an impact. But the slowdown in Italy is follow the slowdown mainly in Europe, always with this gap of rate of growth that we maintain. The last question is about banking system and NPL. But our banking system is more solid than before. It's quite solid. The stock of NPLs are going down according to the program agreed with Europe. The net NPLs ratio is about 5%. And also, the rate regarding the new NPLs at the level of the prior the crisis. Then I don't see problems regarding this issue. I don't remember if I...
Bruce Ackerman? Bruce, I'm sorry.
Innovation typically takes place in very specialized institutions. So biomedical innovation takes place in very different places than IT innovation, than other kinds of innovation. What role does specialization play in your vision?
What kind?
Sorry?
I don't understand the last...
Oh, okay. Can everybody hear, I guess? Innovation tends to be specialized. There's no general innovation out there usually. That it's local geographically and certainly local by industry. And my question is, what role does specialization play in your vision of innovation?
Specialized. Now, where are you going to specialize?
But I know that we need innovations, but personally, I can't say in what direction, which kind of specialization for Italy. I think that we can't have a kind of governance of innovation. It comes from individuals, from the innovators. And it's difficult to anticipate in which field we can have innovation. So of course, we have to create the environment for that. Rules, education, infrastructures, and helps. I don't think that we can plan the innovation, the kind of specialization for Italy. But the Italians are innovators in many fields. Many times they innovate not in Italy, but abroad. And I hope that for Italy it's important to attract innovators, not only the Italians come back, I don't want that, but other people that come. That is the strength of the United States.
Do you want to take one more, or shall we?
It's up to you.
I think we want to leave plenty of time for the reception. Oh, all right. One more. Yes.
Mr. Tria, a day after you became minister, a reporter asked you a day after you became minister, a reporter asked you a rough question about Italy's sovereign position, and you gave an answer that I liked very much, which was, let's look at the facts. If one looks at the facts, even under the most pessimistic assumptions, Italy's debt to GDP stays at 131 for up till 2022. Italy's large banks are some of the best capitalized in the world. Private economists say that NPL ratios have fallen to 4.3%, even better than the 5% number that you cited. Why is it that business and investors in North America, in particular, have such a hard time looking at the facts and seeing that Italy's situation is really, fiscal situation is improving and stable? I mean, maybe we're economists, we're not psychiatrists, but why is it that that Italy is, given that the facts are so good, it's not coming through?
I can't hear clearly.
The facts of Italy.
If you come here, it's
Maybe the facts are
It's
very
better.
good, and yet investors are very concerned about it.
Yeah.
Yet the facts are so. Why is that? Why is investors in North America? Why does Italy's reputation taking so long to recover, considering that the facts are so positive for Italy? As you said.
Positive.
Yes,
so
sir.
why
Yes.
is opinion negative?
But if you mean that the negative opinion now, maybe there is some kind of uncertainty about the new government, but the uncertainty is not just for this year. I think that the problem in Italy is the legal framework. I mean, the uncertainty about the regulatory systems. And the problem that sometimes it's not because it's so bad, but it's always changing. The investor needs stability to know what will happen, which is the framework, with some stability. Maybe the markets can be more or less well regulated, but investors want to understand what will happen. They can also accept not very good regulatory system, but with a kind of stability. This is one of the main problems, I think. Of course, there's other kind of uncertainty. It's a sentiment, then it's difficult to change because it's, of course, always, also for individuals, it's very easy to lose reputation. It's very difficult to gain again the reputation. Then this is a long story.
I want to thank Minister Tria for making the tremendous effort to come here and to give us such a superb and interesting speech. Before you go, here's a little souvenir from Columbia, your days at Columbia. And here's a black bag with lots of other souvenirs in it. Thank you. I should get a picture with. Okay. The reception begins.